Adi to everyone. Happy Friday. We get to explore any one's questions that you might have from the sutras that we've been studying. So if anyone has a question, you can go straight ahead.
Yogeshwara, I have a question. So I think yesterday you talked about there's like the instant karma and there's a karma that's taking much longer time to manifest. I was just wondering, like, does that mean with the instant karma, say something I did right away, I got a reaction to that? Does that mean that karma is already burned off? We don't have to worry about it anymore? Or does it still continue to contribute to whatever that's going to happen? Thank you.
A very good question. Does instant karma burn off or does it create new ones in the future? So we call that the Kriyamanic karma. So once we get a reaction to something, it burns off that karma, yes. But then if we don't learn from it, right? The action and reactions are supposed to allow us to evolve consciously. But if we don't learn the lesson from it, then it will trigger another new seed, right? So with Kriyamana karma, we're actions. Everyone did actions. Every one of us in the room did a lot of actions today. And those actions were from what we see, what we hear. Maybe you listen to something, maybe you ate something, you smelt something. So as we're walking, talking, right? These are all actions. So every action we do, there is a reaction for it. So if we're reaping, say like I gave the example yesterday, if you eat a food that's poisonous, right? That will affect you within the next 12 to 24 hours, instant karma. So you realize, oh, I ate that food, it was poisonous, food poisoning, we call it. Then did you evolve consciously to recognize, oh, that was the cause of why I feel this way. I don't like feeling this way. So in the future, God is going to test us still. He's going to send us the similar type of food and to see if you make the same mistake again. Did you learn from it? So the instant reaction that we have is for us to go. So it will create a trigger of future actions and reaction. But when it comes back around, if you don't make the same mistake again the second time around, that's when you know you have purified that action, that karmic seed. So there's a lot of actions we've done today, which will trigger thought patterns for tomorrow, for next week, for next month. And when they do resurface back into our consciousness, do we make the same mistake again? Or did we learn from them? If we learn from them and we overcome it, that means, yes, you burnt off that karma fully, that karmic seed. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, the law of action and reaction, it's so complex. So we have to be very sensitive and in tune to pinpoint, oh, when to learn what this situation, I should learn from it. Most people don't take their mind to that place where they can learn from a reaction. Most people just, oh, it's a reaction, yeah, let's do it again, right? Same mistake again and again, and until a reaction is extremely multiplied, then people get jolted, right? Like, let's use an example of someone who's alcoholic. They drink the alcohol and they drink too much. And then there's an instant reaction to that. They can't drive their car. They can't even go to their work. So there's a lot of reaction. So if when the person gets sober, when it fades out, did they learn from it? And a lot of people want to grow out of it, but then the cycle, sunrise, sunset, cycle, sunrise, sunset, they're put in a similar situation again by divine intervention by God, just to see if they can grow out of it. So we're not trying to run away from our conditioning. God wants us to evolve out of the conditioning. So sometimes it takes a drastic something to shake the condition, so to wake up. Oh yeah, this is what's it's affecting my relationships. It's affecting my every aspect of me. Get my act together, right? And for that person who's the alcoholic, they would need a strong association of people who are not alcoholic. And if they are able to put themselves in that association, that sangha, there with time over a period, they'll be able to grow out of it. And then they will see the bottle and they won't even feel pull from it. But that's when you know they've burnt off that karmic seed of that. They understand. You learn from it. Oh yeah, I can drive my car safely now. My relationships with my family and friends are deeper and closer, right? Yeah. Good. Any other question? We're all evolving as philosophers. Every day is an opportunity to grow. So every day we have new questions. If we don't have questions, we're not evolving. Because every day, oh wow, what's going on here? It's a new evolution. The person who I saw yesterday is completely different from today. Your mind has changed, your body has changed, the cells has changed, right? As we evolve from day to day.
I have kind of a comment, I guess.
Go straight ahead, Helen.
Okay. As I learn more about the Yoga Sutras, which I've really been enjoying, I find so many parallels to my original faith base, which is Christian and Catholic, not the man-made principles, but the the principles of, loving your neighbor and in eternal life. And so I guess I'm just kind of interested, and I like the idea that the Lord in my heart can be the Lord I'm familiar with. And yet I feel by learning these principles in this way, I'm able to even expand on that feeling of appreciation and really kind of have a better understanding of eternal life. So I've really appreciated broadening that interest. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Ah, thank you, Helen. And And that's that's a realization that comes with everyone on the planet as we evolve gradually, right? There's so many spiritual texts on the planet, and there's so many spiritual paths. Like even in India, there's like over 80 types of religion just in India alone, right? But the fundamental teachings of all of them, the ones with the religions in the West, the pure essence of is to allow us to resonate that we are a spiritual being. We're not this material body. The body is temporary, we are eternal, and we come from a spiritual domain, right? And how to act on that platform. Now, as time goes on, books gets mistranslated, misrepresented, and then we see a lot of narrow-mindedness develop in this age. We call it Kali Yuga. But if we just expand the consciousness a little bit deeper, and you understand, wait, we are so connected in so many ways, right? But in Kali Yuga, we like to separate from each other. No, you know, like take for example, right now with the virus, right? I have a friend. He's a Hindu. He's a Hindu, and he lives in New York City, but he's a doctor. And I was having a chat with him, and he's true. It doesn't matter if the person is a Jewish person on the bed, a Muslim person on the bed, like all those fall away. He said he's tapping into this intense, caring nature, which goes beyond. So that moment of unconditional love and compassion comes through. Sometimes we need drastic situation like this to bring it out, but it's there. That's in every spiritual text, to love everyone as a spiritual person. But then as time went on, people, they mistranslate, misrepresent, and then it became us and them and we and them, And he was saying, because he's Hindu, and he had a Muslim client on the way. And in India, there's always this subtle tension with Hindu and Muslim. But he said that just fell away. He was really trying to help this person to get back on their 2 feet. So you can just see, we have to read the ancient texts with a different perception, because even like I grew up as Christian like you, but then the priest who was presenting the Bible was also not evolved. So they were presenting from their evolution. So you would hear one thing, and I started to question things, and I could see the purity of the text was there, but I could see how things just got misconstrued, and and so the yogis, we don't follow blindly, right? We want to have experiences that take us to those places of connecting with each and every person on that pure plane. And it takes a while to get there, because the mind is controlled by rajas, passion, tamas, ignorance. So to get the mind to that mode of goodness, it's very hard. I remember once my teacher said, Charu, if you see the mode of goodness, you probably will run away from it. You understand? I had so much rajas and tamas in my psyche, right? And as I started to evolve, I realized it takes a lot of purification to get into the mode of goodness. And the mode of goodness is where pure wisdom comes, unfiltered, pure as it is, not discolored or no. So once we are sincere, we will be able to tap into that wisdom. And remember, the books that are written, right? We call them ancient books. But the yogis recognize that God exists back in those ancient times, and God exists right now. So we don't have to always refer to ancient, right? As we study the sutras, we realizing, wait, it's happening right here, right now. It's a living philosophy. So spiritual philosophy is it's right here, right now, and we can tap into it and break off these designations and then connect with each other in a loving way. But unfortunately, because the mode of passion and ignorance is so strong, people don't want to go there. So we have to, as we evolve, we have to simultaneously empathize with people who are still controlled by the modes of passion and ignorance, right? As we evolve, we don't become arrogant. We want to stay humble and recognize, wow, because I could see myself 30 years ago, just like every other, with my narrow mind of thinking, and yet thinking I am right, unfortunately. So as we evolve, we start to understand, wait. Spiritual evolution can come from any part of the planet. It doesn't matter which culture, right? All corners of the planet, spirituality can exist. There's not just like one way. Different cultures will approach it slightly different, and we learn to respect and connect with them on that pure plane. Thank you. Anyone else has a question or a comment like Helen?
Well, if no one else has one,
Go straight ahead, Greg.
if no one else
Mahala.
has one,
Go ahead.
everyone. But I guess since I had a recent death in the family, I was wondering, is there a difference between burial and cremation in the thought process? And then that leads me to, it's kind of sort of your basic, like I personally still believe in reincarnation as, say, mythology more than, I don't want to go and have to prove to myself the reality. So I prefer to put it in the realm of mythology. But how do you account for all the, it's sort of I'm sure it's been asked before, this, like the population of the world has tripled, and how do you have enough souls to keep?
Beautiful question, Greg.
Is there some temporary holding pattern that the soul goes into before it becomes, it comes back again? Or maybe you could talk a little of that.
Beautiful question. The theory of, or the philosophy of reincarnation, we can see it pervades the yogic texts and it pervades other spiritual texts. But just because it pervades the yogic text doesn't make it right. That's how I've been trained. We have to have an experience of it to make it right. So maybe one day during your meditation, you will get a clear glimpse of who you spiritually are and see your previous life. That's when it becomes concrete for you. And I cannot make that choice for you. You have to make that choice for yourself. So my teachers always say, yes, certain things in the yoga culture, he told me, keep it as mythology until you experience something that makes it concrete. So, and I, like I said, when I got to India, I would see people, worship a half man, half elephant. And I came from a Christian country, which says you shouldn't bow down to false idols, which that's stressed heavily in my church. So when I got to India, and I see like I had to. So for me, I had to keep it at bay. I didn't understand it, but then simultaneously, I knew I was getting so much benefits from practicing yoga. So I didn't want to throw away the baby with the bath, right? Because I understand maybe something that I didn't know. And then as I started to practice more and more and more and more and understand the philosophy and understand the culture, then things became clearer. So I kept certain things at bay. I didn't accept it just blindly. And that's a sign of intelligence. We all have to exercise our intellect. And then as we grow and we start to get realizations from inside, then it becomes experience knowledge, not just Gyan. Gyan is knowledge, Vigyan is realized knowledge. So we get realized knowledge. And then, but sometimes you might get a realization, but the mind might want to reject it, right? So we have to be flexible of having an experience of a previous life, or even someone they might move on. The temple couldn't maintain the Atma anymore, so we call it die. But then the person is an eternal being, and then sometimes you might then be able to connect to them in that dimension in your meditation. Or maybe most people, if they don't do meditation or prayer or anything like that, they will get that experience in dreams. So you might be able to have a dream of that being, and you have a conversation just like we're having now, and it clears out stuff for us. So sometimes our experiences in the dream are the people we meet are actually, we see them sometimes as teachers. They come back to teach us, hey, this. So, oh, wow. But most people, unfortunately, don't catch their dreams. Most people get up with the alarm and forgot the experience. It's not a dream. It's a deep spiritual experiences you have at night when we put this body into stillness. And then to answer the other aspect of why it seems like there's more souls coming to the planet, right? This planet is only one planet of many planets, thousands of planets. And the Vedic culture, when you study the Vedic culture, in Kali Yuga is when we don't have that ability. We slow down our ability to move from planet to planet. To move planet, right? But in the previous yugas, you see this Rishi would go from this planet to that planet. So there were life on every planet, species on every planet. So when we see more people taking birth here, they're coming from other planets. And then when we leave, we're going to another planet. The soul, remember the soul can survive on this Earth planet, on the atmosphere of this amazing celestial body. We call it the Earth, because we have a vibration which mutate with the earth element. So that makes us live on this earth planet. And it took 9 months to develop a body to live on this earth. But the soul is eternal. So if the soul wants to go to the sun planet, the sun, when the soul goes there, it can't be destroyed by fire. So the soul will have to develop a body made up of fire to live on the sun planet. If we go to the moon, we need a body. So the soul can transmigrate anywhere around the universe, but it will need a body that is appropriate for that planetary atmosphere. So when we incarnate to the earth, my teacher used to say we get a space suit from God that can live on this earth. So we all got a space suit to live on this earth. And we're in this suit for a while. And when we go to another transmigration. So yeah, so sometimes the planetary population might go up, go down, but all that's just depending on our interrelationship with other souls. So your family, let's take, for example, your family, right? There's no coincidence you're born in that family, right? That tells us in previous life, You and your family members were already in different, you related in a different body style, and just on our Earth planet. I mean, scientists, they try to prove it. There's a lot of scientists that have shown examples of kids. Normally, it's kids. They can go into like a hypnotized state and they they can tell their previous life. There are many documentaries of that on the planet. But again, that's not enough to convince you or me. We have to have an experience to make it solidify. But some people, they can just read and it makes sense to us. So some people just get it from theory. Some people need to have a theory and experience. And there's nothing wrong with where you're at in your evolution, right? So, and there's a saying in the yoga culture, you have to be extremely careful, right? Who you choose to be your life partner. Because sometimes in your last life, you already have a similar mentality. Maybe you and that person were enemies. And then you incarnate this life and you're attracted to each other, but for the wrong reason, right? So so until you can really slow down the breath, slow down the heartbeat, concentrate in the mind, you will get glimpse of what your previous or future life is, if that's one of your desires. Paramatma can reveal that to you. Lord and Heart can remind you. Again, he's reminding us constantly, but we don't remember it because we're sleeping and it just goes away. And then even in this life, right, you see certain kids, some kids are born with certain traits, like you're born with certain traits, but then your siblings had other traits. Then, so it tells us that, yeah, a lot of similarities, but yet differences even among siblings. One kid just comes and want to become a painter. One wants to be a professor. So those are psychic conditioning they're bringing from previous life. So that's the theory part. But then one day, with your sincerity, you will get that beautiful realization. And then it becomes solidified.
Thank you.
Who knows, maybe, last life, we're already communicating with each other, right? It's not just the first time. The family members, normally your family members are not the first time you're having a relationship with them. Normally, it's like a few generations down, few lifetimes you've already connected. I remember one of my friends there, I went to this astrologer in South India, really good astrologer, and he did the charts for my friend and his, at the time, fiance. And when he read the chart, it was like, oh, you guys have been married for 4 lifetimes. It's no coincidence, but again, they're Indians, they're trained that it's part of the culture to accept reincarnation. So it makes sense for them. But for an outsider, it might take a while, and there's nothing wrong with that. The culture, what I realized with the Vedas is, Vyasadeva is not trying to impose, and he's just sharing wisdom. He's already self-realized. He's very detached. He does it out of love and compassion. He shares wisdom. So it's up to, it's like as we evolve, oh, that makes sense, clearer and clearer. I hope that helped to answer it, Greg.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also just from yesterday's sutra, when I was saying, because Greg's father is 101.
Almost.
Almost 101, Greg's father. So that Patanjali says yesterday, if you meditate on the Prarabdha karma, right? And what does that mean? You look at your grandparents, how long did they live? How long did your parents live? So you get a glimpse of how long you're going to live in this incarnation. You get a glimpse of it. And different species, right? If you're born in different species, you have a different time frame. Once we're born in the human species, you can look, right? So different, and this universe is so huge. So he's just giving us a glimpse. Let us expand. So there's a high probability, Greg, you might make 100 years old. That's the normal age for residents of Kali Yuga to reach, if you can make it to 100 But we can see, as Kali Yuga moves on, I think the average now, I think, is 85 or 86 years old. Quill's parents is older than 90. Orit, how old is your father?
93.
93. So again, okay, that can give you a glimpse. Oh yeah, there's a high probability you will reach that age as well, because it's your karma has allowed you to engage a similar genetic codes, heredity, right? Some people, there's something like a hereditary disease where the grandfather died at 44, the father dies at 44. You can start to look at your time frame, how much lifetime. That's what Patanjali was explaining yesterday. By meditating on your fetus at the time of birth, understanding the language, the part of the planet you're born, you get a glimpse of where we're heading. Yeah. Any other question? Thank you, Greg, so much.
Thank you.
Yogichara, could you clarify
Jenny.
what's the difference between Purusha and Ishvara? Or are they exactly the same?
So in Sanskrit, you come across the word Purusha and the word Ishvara. So in Sanskrit, we come across words which will describe divinity with different qualities. It's just like your mother will refer to you, Jenny. How does your mother refer to you?
Jenny.
Does your mother, Jenny? How does your baby call you?
Mommy.
Mommy. Your husband probably say honey, right? So in other words, different people have a different relationship with you. So if your mom, your husband, your baby, your friends are in the room with you and all of them say that name at their own unique name that they have for you, you know they're referring to you. So similarly, Ishvara is just a Sanskrit word for Sanskrit, which means controller, for God, which means controller, ultimate controller. And Purusha means ultimate enjoyer. So we have the Purusha and Shakti. So it's just another Sanskrit terminology for the same divine. It's just different relationship it's exemplifying. Does that make sense? Yeah.
But then some people say it's an individual God, and what's the opposite? So there's an individual God, and there's a total that's
oneness. Oneness.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So the way how the Vedas describe divinity in three forms. The all God is everywhere, all pervasive, unmanifested state, and that's called the Brahman. Then God is in everything as Paramatma, localized in every being. And then Bhagavan is God as a divine person, which is not a material body, a spiritual body with all the spiritual emotions. So as we evolve spiritually, we will be attracted to one of those aspects, right? And it will be comes naturally for you. Some friends, like my Buddhist friends or my Islam friends, right? To see God as a person, right? It's very hard for them, but they can relate to divinity as an energy, as a force. Whereas friends who are brought up as Christians or who are like Hindus, where they're cultured gods as a divine person, it's easier. But it's not that one. As you evolve, you will be able to connect to that divinity in your own unique way. For the yogis in the Himalayas, most of them relate to God as a divine being in their heart space called Paramatma, they localize. So for most yogis, they will connect to divinity in the heart. And then from that, they can connect to divinity outside. So it's like the sun globe, right? The sun globe is there, but then they have the sun rays. If I put my hand in the rays for a while, I'll get burned, right? Because it's extension of the sun. But could you imagine the sun comes in this room right now? It'll burn me away. So the extension and where it comes from. So there's spirituality in different dimensions, Vyasadeva writes, in the unmanifested form as energy, localized Paramatma, or as Bhagavan. So 3 different aspects. So different people will connect to divinity in a way that makes sense for their evolution. There's not one, we're all evolving at our own pace. And that's the beauty about yoga. It's not a competitive journey. As we evolve, realization comes in. Yes. So you can't artificially force it, right? Like when I was in school, I was taking physics. And as I was studying physics, my physics teacher was, he put this designation, this mental modification. I'm an atheist. Right? He's a physicist, so he look at the world in a certain way, right? That's another mental modification, to be an atheist. And as I started to evolve, because here I was going to church, then I'm meeting someone who says they're atheist. Yeah, and we start to question and then whenever we're sincere about our evolution, we'll get answers, and we'll get free of all these mental modifications. Yeah. Hope that answers your question, Jenny. The 3 aspects of divinity: the unmanifested, the localized, and the spiritual divine form. Anyone else? One last question, then we can do a short meditation on we're going to have a new moon in the near future, right? Our moon is waning. So, yeah.
Charu,
Yes.
this is Mai. So my question
Aloha, Mai. How are you?
Good. So I haven't been able to follow all the sutras, but my question is Hatha Yoga talked in the sutras? I know you talk about asanas and pranayamas, and a few weeks ago we talked about the different yogas that are really just asanas and pranayama. But you also talk about how Hatha Yoga is purifying both sides, the moon and the sun. So
Yeah.
how did Hatha Yoga develop from the sutras? Is it unrelated, or is it part of the sutras?
A beautiful question, Mai. So the sutra is a presentation of yoga as a philosophy. So as Patanjali presents the philosophy of yoga, he only touches different aspects of the other styles of yoga. And in his sutras, he's taken us on the journey. He calls it Raja Yoga, or yoga for the stillness of the mind. He spent more time with the Antaranga Yoga. He only mentioned asana in this book about 3 times. We come across the word asana. So the Hatha Yoga Pradipika is another book spoken by Lord Shiva to his wife Parvati, and it was retold by a yoga sage, Swatmarama. So that's where we find the Hatha Yoga practices. Now, because the philosophy and the Hatha Yoga practices, they intertwine with each other. Because as you do the Hatha, when you study Hatha Yoga Pradipika, you'll see a lot of the same philosophy, why you do this and the Ali postures, they connect to the same aspect of philosophy. Because a yogi, he wants to develop not just physically with the poses, he also wants to develop the mind, the intellect, and wants to develop the heart space. So the book which describes the whole yogic aspect is the Gita. In the Gita, Krishna speaks of karma yoga, hatha yoga, raja yoga, dhyan yoga, bhakti yoga, like all the levels of yoga we find in the Gita. But then it won't explain hatha yoga in detail like Hatha Yoga Pradipika. So in the Gita, so the different books, they will just touch certain things. They'll just mention it with 2 or 3 mantras here and there to let us know they exist. But the author is focusing more on this aspect. So in the Yoga Sutras, he only described asanas, comfortable, steady pose, and the meditative poses. But then we find other books, right, where they describe the other types of poses, many more, right? Then the Hatha Yoga says there are 8,400,000 postures. Amazing. And then on the Earth planet, we might be able to do about 5,000 of those poses. The other poses, we don't have the body type like Lord Shiva, or what we call like a angelic body, a more ethereal body that can do them. So many books are written, and they're presenting yoga from a certain angle. So the sutras he's really describing the philosophy of the yogic thinking, and he's taking us on the journey of Raja Yoga, the pathway of sitting still, controlling the mind on the breath, Dharan, Dhyan, Samadhi. So he's describing that aspect. Hatha Yoga Pradipika describes that, but describes more of the chakra system. You heard of the word chakras if you go to a yoga. So in Hatha, you'll find not just the 4 classical seated posture, many other poses. You'll find some philosophy. You'll find all the cleansing techniques. You'll find all the deeper meditation on the chakras. Sorry. When you come to the Gita will explain them in a nutshell, like that. The ladder of yoga. And so as we start to study them, we start to see how they are interrelating with each other. Now, when we're practicing yoga today, most of the things that we're doing when you go to a yoga class is more from the Hatha Yoga practice. And then when people do those more, because most people will come to yoga through the postures. Like when I teach, I offer like meditation workshops around the world, and I travel. I get 50 people for a meditation weekend immersion. And it's amazing. Out of those 50 people, I ask, who here does yoga poses? Out of 50, 10 hands go up. It means a certain mentality, evolution, they're attracted to the Antaranga yoga. Then I have a workshop for headstand, forearm stand, handstand, arm balance workshop. 50 people show up. I ask how many people who have a daily meditation practice. Out of those 50, 10 people. So that just tells you different evolution get attracted to yoga slightly different. But what Patanjali does, he shows us that we can go from the external yoga to the internal yoga. And so we want to be able to do both. The Hatha Yoga Pradipika will describe both as well. They just show you more of the Hatha Yoga practices and the breathing exercises and the dualities that we live in. So it's just slightly different how they're presented. Does that make sense, man?
Yes, thank you.
Good question. Because today, yeah, you know, the most popular book on yoga philosophy is this Yoga Sutras. The most book that breaks down the Hatha Yoga that people do is Hatha Yoga Pradipika, but rarely you hear someone studies Hatha Yoga Pradipika. And then the most spiritual text about yoga is the Gita. And a lot of people studied the Gita because that's one of the first Vedic texts that came to the West. If you're people like to separate Eastern philosopher or Western philosopher. But if you were a Western philosopher of the latter time and you look to the East, one of the first books you had access to was the Gita. So, and that takes you on this whole spiritual aspect of yoga. And that's why we try to study as much of the books as possible. And I was just so fortunate. I started off really young, so I was able to study the Gita, study Hatha Yoga Pradipika, study the sutras. I studied the Garanda Samhita, the Brahma Samhita, so the Bhagavatam. I was just drinking knowledge that literally after like 6 years of studying, my mind and not just studying, I would practice teaching with my friends, and that's how we trained each other. And we would meditate on these sutras, so they became realized knowledge rather than just theory. Because I remember once my teacher told us, if you just study and don't practice and meditate on it, just read it, he said, you'll become mentally constipated. So it's about putting it into practice. So you have to start to live it. Yes, make sure, okay, how am I living with it? Yeah. Let's chant up. Thank you all so much for your beautiful questions. It's nice it's nice that I teach the way I teach the sutras, but also nice to hear the questions. And it's nice to also meditate on the sutras. So when we study the sutra, I like to meditate on it so we realize it more. And then we don't have time for questions. So it's nice to have a day once every 2 weeks so we can ask questions on your experience of the sutras. So thank you all so much. Let's bring the spine tall, close the eyes softly. Let's chant the together once. Om. Palms to the heart, lower the head towards the Lord in the heart. Namaste. Lift the head and the eyes. Thank you so much, Helen Anzaline. Thank you, Karina. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Marilyn. Mahalo, Greg. Mahalo, Mai. Thank you, Orit. Thank you, Noreen.
Thank you, Yogi Charu.
Thank you, Subin.
Thank you, Yogi Charu.
Hari Om Tat Sat. Thank you. Have a beautiful weekend, everyone.
You
See you
too.
on Monday.
Bye.